Hey Bear, wanted to do another video. This one, I was going through my BassMaster magazine and wanted to talk about this article that I saw. It's a really cool article about the pros on the Bass Elite Series, so the highest tournament series in America or in the world for bass fishing is the BassMaster Elite Series. So there's about 100 guys. I think 104 participated in the 2025 season, and so these guys are the best of the best. They're the best anglers in the world, and they're really good at catching bass. But there's only 8 or 9 tournaments in the whole series, in the whole season. So these guys, there are only 8 or 9 winners, 8 or 9 winners. And you think about like the NFL, and bunches of teams win every week. And so there's a lot of winners all the time. But in bass fishing, there's only 8 or 9 in the entire season. So 104 guys are competing, and only 8 or 9 win in the whole year. And so it's really tough. It's really hard to fish. That means that if only 8 or 9 won, and a couple guys won twice maybe, then you only have, you got 95 to 100 losers every single year, all the time. So guys that did not win, these are the best anglers, and they didn't win the whole year, and they might not win for 10 years. So it's a really competitive sport. It's really tough. But anyway, this article is a special one for a couple reasons, but mainly because it talks about what baits worked and what won the tournaments of the 2025 season. So flip to page 32 in your BassMaster magazine. This is the black BassMaster from February 2026, the first one of the year. It says AOY exclusive Johnston emerges from shadow to spotlight on the front. That's a cool article too on page 20, but we're going to go to page 32, where it shows the 2025 Elite Series anglers all holding up their trophies. Let's see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 winners in the 2025 season. So here we go. We're going to talk about it, man. The first tournament was in February at the St. Johns River in Florida, Palatka, Florida. All right, it's a really good river. Florida's great for bass fishing. A lot of big fish there. Hey, this one's special to me. One, it was the first of the series and the first of the season. But the man that won this thing is a friend of mine, a really cool guy. He taught me a whole lot about fishing. I know him, I've spoken with him. He's a really cool guy, and his name's Bill Lowen, and they call him Dollar Bill Lowen because he's so consistent at getting checks, even though he's only won 2 times in his entire career, in over 20 plus years. But he's a very good bass fisherman, and really cool guy. And he won this first tournament, and I remember watching it. I watched all 4 days. I was watching it while I was at work. I was sitting there at my desk following it all day long, and man, it was an awesome tournament, and Bill did such a great job. So that right there is Bill. Hopefully you can see that, but get to your magazine if you can't see it. But that's Bill Lowen, a really cool guy. I might even be able to put a picture of him and me together in this video, and maybe I can show you what, us two standing there together, because he was at a tournament of mine a couple years ago. But anyway, so this article says, right here in this part, talks about how Bill Lowen won the tournament. And it says, veteran Bill Lowen, one of the most popular anglers on the Elite Series, caught 73 pounds, 14 ounces to win his second Elite title by fishing shallow with his signature jig. He credits much of his success to his experience fishing cold, dirty water on the Ohio River. And that's where I fish a lot, the Ohio River. It's very tough. There's not a lot of fish, not a lot of big fish. It's always tough conditions. And Bill Lowen learned how to fish there. He's from Brookville, Indiana. Lowen fished in Deep Creek along its north bank. He specifically targeted that area due to a cold front, as those banks allowed him to pick apart the shallows in places where the fish had deeper water nearby. So a couple things here. Deep Creek is the name of the creek. It doesn't mean that it has deep water. It just means that that's the name of what that creek is called. So like you're at the Fox River, he was fishing Deep Creek. It might be deep. I'm not 100% sure, but it's, that's just the name of the creek. He says he's fishing the north bank. That's very key. North bank, when you're fishing on the north bank of a river, that means the bank that is farthest north. And in the springtime, that's very important. There's a reason he was fishing that side. So when you have a north facing bank, those banks receive the sun and have the sunlight more throughout the day than the southern banks do. So the sun will shine on that north bank and will warm up that water and warm up that structure over there much faster than the bank that's been in the shade, the southern part of whatever place you're fishing. So if you're at a pond, if you're at a lake, if you're at a river, if you're at a creek, whatever, the northern banks are going to be warmer and probably hold more fish than the southern banks do. So big part there, he was fishing the north bank and specifically targeted area with cold front, as those banks allowed him to pick apart the shallows and places where fish had deeper water nearby. So deeper water nearby means that he was fishing shallow areas, but places that weren't just shallow for long ways. It was shallow, but there was a decline close by that allowed these fish to go up and down as they wanted. And so throughout the day, fish were doing that. They were going up and down. Fish don't just stay in the same spot all day long, and they don't just swim like a car down a highway all day long. They will stay in a general area, and they'll follow different patterns. And these fish were going up and down and going deeper and going shallower throughout the day as the water warmed, as the water cooled, as the sun shined through. Different things like that allows for fish to kind of change their temperament and what they're doing. The key baits, Bill Owen did what he always does. Bill Owen loves jigs. He always has. He was throwing his 3/8 ounce signature flipping jig, and he was throwing a 5/16 ounce swim jig. Now, a lot of guys wouldn't throw both of these interchangeably throughout the day. A lot of guys would throw one. But he threw them both, and he was switching them back and forth often. I remember watching this. He was sitting there, and he would he would flip his jig up in there into a few of the lay down trees, and he'd flip it up in there into the grass, and he wouldn't get anything. And then he'd throw his swim jig, and he kept switching back and forth like over and over and over again. He wouldn't throw this one like 50 times and then throw this one 50 times. He'd throw it once, twice, and then he'd throw the other one once or twice. Then he'd throw the other one, then he'd throw the other one, and he just kept switching from rod to rod. And it was really cool, and they look very similar. So they've got them pictured there. Very similar appearance, black and blue jigs. But he was using them in different ways, and the point of switching is they are a little bit different and can do different things. So the flipping jig, he had it paired with a super chunk, which is a chunk style trailer, so it's got less action. That bait it's got like two little tails or legs on it that will just kind of fall and not do a ton. It might kick a little, but not much. And so it's basically just a profile looking bait. It also has a much rounder head, arky style head, that will allow that bait to fall and kind of sit down on the bottom and pop and different things, but it doesn't swim as good as the pointy head of a swim jig. So on the swim jig, he had the pointy head that would come through different things and swim better. And then he had the Zoom Super Speed Crawl on the back of that one, which has very flappy legs. These legs kick very hard. So he was using a kind of nothing style, trailer on the flipping jig, and then he was using a very flappy trailer on the swim jig, and he would throw them interchangeably like I was saying. So he'd flip his jig up in there, go kind of basically on nothing when he felt like that was what was working, and then he'd throw the swim jig up in there and swim it, and basically was using them kind of the same as far as the pattern. He didn't cast the swim jig out and just pull it straight back, and he didn't flip the flipping jig up in there and just let it sit. He kind of would pop them, he'd pull them to the top, he'd swim them up, and then let them fall, and then swim them up and let them fall, and then just kind of kept switching around. He also was switching colors a lot. So the jig and the skirt was black and blue the whole time, but he was switching from a black trailer to a blue trailer, and then to a hybrid of the two that was a black and blue trailer, and that's the one he used the most. It's called Black Sapphire by Zoom, and so he used that trailer a lot. But he did use the solid blue, and he did use the solid black as well. Conditions, dealt with cold weather and dirty water. Then there's other key patterns to list there as well that talks about what some other guys did at that tournament. But basically, Bill Owen did an awesome job with his jigs. A really, really cool deal. Indiana man won the first tournament of the year. The next one up, this is another guy that I absolutely love, one of my favorite fishermen, and he won the second tournament. So two of my favorite fishermen out of 104 guys won the first two tournaments last year, and it was so much fun. So anyway, this guy I met last year at one of the fishing expos, Brandon Polnick. He's a really cool guy. He's from Idaho, which is way out west, out by Yellowstone. That's where he grew up, and his family still lives out there. He's married. He has 2 daughters. Really cool guy, and he was a wrestler. He was a state champion wrestler out there in Idaho. So really cool dude. I love Brandon Polnick. And like I said, I got to meet him. I can maybe upload a picture of him and I together as well in this video. But anyway, so the second tournament, Brandon won this one completely different. This was only a week later, and says that Brandon Polnick returned to the winner's circle by seining a small stretch of canal between Lake Istokpaga and the Kissimmee River for 95 pounds and 4 ounces. He keyed on water depths from 10 to 20 feet and shared the area with other anglers. The key to the location was it offered spawning grounds with deep water nearby. The sweet spot had a riprap bank and a funnel that fed into the big spawning flat. Polnick said he used Humminbird Mega Live 2 to scan around to see how the fish were positioned before presenting his lure. So, some key stuff here. First is that he was fishing with other anglers. So, shared the area with other anglers. That was a huge point of this tournament. This was a big tournament, 4 days long, and rarely do you see fishermen fishing close to each other. Sometimes you'll see it, 100 yards away or maybe even 50 or 60, but you don't typically see guys kind of just sharing an area. It's kind of unheard of. But in this tournament, these guys had all practiced in this area, and they all went to this area, and they kind of had known beforehand that that people were going to be in this area. And these guys kind of talked about it and said, "Hey, I'm not really going to kick you out. But let's just work together and see if we can there's enough fish here, and let's see if we can actually work together and just all use this area and see what happens." And so that's what they did. And so you got 3 or 4 pro fishermen using the same water, which is, I mean, it's kind of crazy. If you talk to, some old fishermen, these guys would be like, I cannot even believe this. I cannot believe that these pros are sharing and fishing the same spot. Because, 20 years ago, guys would have said, get out of here. This is my spot. So, really cool for these guys to have shared that area, to have worked together and and all of them did very well, but only one won, and it was Brandon Polnick. So it says that he was using spawning grounds, but deep water nearby. So he's up again in those spawning grounds where they're trying to lay their eggs, but there's a deep decline, and he's fishing more in that deeper water and in these funnels that kind of is traffic areas, highways for these fish that had just come off the spawn. He's catching mostly post-spawn fish. Key baits he was using, Polnick was doing his favorite thing. So Bill Owen in the first one, you'll notice that a lot. A lot of times when guys succeed at these big time deals, it's because they got to do what they love to do. And that's what I would always encourage you to do. If you don't like throwing a certain bait, if you don't like throwing something else, don't do it. Throw what you like to throw. And it's good to learn and practice with some other things so that you end up liking more things. That's very good. But it's really important to like what you're doing, get really good at it, and if you get really good at a couple things and you really like them better than other stuff, then fish that style. And a lot of these pros, when they win these tournaments, it's because they got to do what they love to do. So Bill Owen did it with his jigs, and Brandon Polnick did it with his deep crankbaits. So he was using the prototype Mega Bass crankbait, and then he was using the Kanata jerkbait. And then he was also using another Mega Bass crankbait that's deep. Mega Bass is just it's a brand. So deep crankbaits is what he was using. The lake was high, flooded grass was minimal, wind blew in different directions nearly every day. And then it talks about what some other guys did. But he was catching some big ones, and Polnick caught 2 massive fish, 9 pounds or more. I think they were heavier than 9 pounds, nearly 10-pound fish, and he caught them like basically right in a row, and it's just unbelievable. And he was just hammering them. Caught some monster fish. A really cool day, really big win for him, and really cool tournament. So later on in the year, we went from February to April. We didn't have one in March, and So this was in Elizabeth City, North Carolina, at the Pasquotank River in Albemarle Sound. Kyle Welcher won this one, and he was using the Bronco Bug on a Texas rigged heavy cover hook. So just a little small creature there. Again, black and blue though, like Bill, just not a jig. It was a creature bait that he's flipping up into bushes and catching some fish, and that's how he won that one. The next tournament was at Lake Hartwell, and Paul Marks won that one. Paul Marks is a pretty cool dude, and he was using a wobblehead and a soft jerk bait and even a walking bait on top as well. So 3/16 out Spro skipjack shaky head with a Zoom Fluke Jr. and Spro walking haint with the Super Fluke as well. So that's what he was using. Those are the baits. So the Fluke is a big one there, and the shaky head. We've talked about both of those things before. Big time baits for him. Then at Lake Fork on May 11, Yanis, Texas, Tucker Smith, a young guy, real young guy. This was his first time in the Elite Series, and he had a great year, and he won this one. Targeted clay points and saddles, which means like kind of places that are shallow, but then there's deep spots on both sides, so kind of a hump, but then it tapers down and there's another hump. So that area between the two humps is where he was fishing. 3/4 ounce Picasso Lures tungsten football jig with a Yamacraw trailer, and then also a ball head jig. So he's using big jigs out in those deeper spots, just dragging them around the bottom, and did a great job out there. Then on the Sabine River, this was a crazy tournament. A lot of guys get annoyed with the Sabine River. It's a really tough river, a lot of small fish. Guys are getting 6, 7 bites a day, and not at all what they're used to. So guys were having a tough time. But Pat Schlopper won, did a great job, only had 38 pounds and 12 ounces, but he did it with a jig, a black and blue jig, just like Bill Owens. So 3 guys already have won on jigs in 5 tournaments, or 6 tournaments. So jigs are a big deal, really cool deal, and that's why they're my favorite lure. Lake Tenkiller in June in Cookson, Oklahoma. This was a big one as well. Wes Logan got a win. Wes Logan's a really cool guy. He's a friend of Bill Owens. He's from Alabama, and he won flipping a jig. So another jig winning, and that one was out at Lake Tenkiller. So these are all different bodies of water in different states even, and these guys are all using similar stuff to win these tournaments. Then it's Lake St. Clair. This is up north in Michigan. Trey McKinney won, throwing some minnows and fishing for smallmouth. Caught a lot of smallmouth out there, and did a good job with the Shindo shad on a tungsten ball head. So it's just a minnow, mostly using as electronics. Then at La Crosse, Wisconsin, Pat Schlopper got his second win of the season with 66 pounds 5 ounces, and he was using a jerk minnow, so kind of like a fluke, but he was using it on a jig head, and he was also using a jig and a bonsai frog. So cool stuff there. That's a cool article talking about those guys. You can read more in depth there and kind of learn more about what they were doing. But those are the baits. Jigs are big, deep crank baits, minnows, flukes, soft jerk baits, shaky heads, all awesome baits that got wins on the biggest level in bass fishing. And so different things that we should all be trying and learning. And so really cool deal. Try to follow the BassMaster guys and the Bass Elite Series this year. They're going to start again in February, probably in Florida. And Brandon Polinick and Bill Owen are my 2 favorite guys. Aunt Becca likes Gerald Swindle, and there's a few other guys that we like a lot. But those are some of our favorites. So take a look, watch the Bass Elite Series. Usually the Championship Sunday is on TV sometimes on ESPN or Fox or something like that. So I think Fox Sports 1 has it. So take a look at the Bass Elite Series this year, Bear. Thanks, man. Let's talk fishing.